This is what the Nativity story might have been like had it happened in 2020, written by Reverend Rachel Dale and used with permission. Mary was sitting in her garden with a cup of tea and a slice of homemade banana bread. She had finished her lockdown chores and had even squeezed in a quick Joe Wicks PE session, so she had a little bit of free time before her Microsoft Teams meeting at 11. As she sat, suddenly there was an angel standing 2 meters away. He didn't have a mask on, but that was okay as they were outside. The angel told her she was to have a baby. He would be God's son, a light for all the people of the world, and she was to call him Jesus. Mary was a little confused at first, but then everything is a little confusing this year. She wondered if this was fake news. But with a bit of Googling and a lot of praying, she realized this really was God's plan. And so she said yes. She had to tell her fiancé Joseph, though, and he was not best pleased. At least, not until the angel paid him a visit, too. "Don't worry," Joseph said to Mary. "We can bring the wedding forward. After all, the banns have already been read. We'll need to cut down the guest list, but we can live stream the service to everyone else on Facebook." A few months went by. Lockdown was eased a little, and then tightened again, and it was almost time for the baby to be born. The Prime Minister said that Mary and Joseph needed to go to Bethlehem to be counted, even though last week the PM had also said they shouldn't make unnecessary journeys, which confused them a little. They wondered and wondered and wondered what to do. But they knew if they didn't get counted, they wouldn't be able to get universal credit, and with the carpentry business struggling, they really needed the help. So they agreed reluctantly to go, even though Bethlehem was in a higher tier than Nazareth. They decided they would be safer if they avoided public transport, so they went by donkey instead. If anyone stopped them, they would say they were doing their daily allotted exercise. When they got to Bethlehem, it was busier than expected for a little town in lockdown. No wonder the R number was so much higher here than at home. They tried to find somewhere to stay, but it was hopeless. The first inn they came to had closed, and all the staff had been furloughed. The second inn was open, but only for takeaways, which needed to be pre-booked online and collected from the car park at a set time. They were really tired as they approached the final inn in town. "We are open," said the innkeeper, "but we're full of key workers who are away from their families." Mary was close to tears, she was so tired, and the innkeeper noticed her eyes filling up. "But I can see how tired you are," he continued. "How about the garage round back? It'll be quiet, and you'll be safe for the night." And so Mary and Joseph, and of course the donkey, settled down for the night. And in the middle of the night, the baby was born, which meant that Joseph could be there, which was good. He couldn't have been there, could he, on a maternity ward? And at least the garage was COVID secure. They called the baby Jesus, just as the angel had said, and placed him in a wooden crate wrapped in a blanket. There were some shepherds in the fields nearby watching their sheep. After all, they couldn't work from home, could they? They'd been in a bubble since the second lockdown began and were watching I'm a Celebrity on their phones with a wry smile. And they knew just how cold hillsides could get at this time of year. All of a sudden, a heavenly host appeared singing. Well, not quite a host, more of a heavenly trio, standing 1 meter plus with mitigations. And not quite singing either, more of a muted humming behind their visors. The shepherds were used to hearing things from across the fields, though, so they had no problem making out what the angels were singing. A baby had been born. He would be their king, and they could meet him on Zoom. After a bit of tussle with their rural broadband, they managed to connect. They could see the baby king. but they couldn't hear anything. And they weren't sure whether you could tell a king's mom that she was on mute. It was soon all sorted out, and they were able to sing to the new baby, because you can still sing on Zoom. How amazing was that? Then they Zoom waved goodbye for quite a long time and left the meeting. Quite a long way away, not part of the travel corridor, there were 3 kings. A star had told them about the king. The angels would have had to spend too long in quarantine if they'd gone there. They made the journey to Bethlehem too, walking at a safe distance from one another, only stopping for the occasional Greg's vegan sausage roll. They didn't want to travel by camel. Camels had been super spreaders of the mare's virus a few years ago. So the kings thought they'd better be safe than sorry. Llamas were a pretty cool replacement, though. Everyone loves llamas. When they got to Bethlehem, they found the garage. They sanitized, scanned the test and trace QR code on their apps, and one at a time were able to go in and meet the new baby Jesus, who is safely tucked up behind a Perspex screen. They texted Joseph the Hermes tracking code for their gifts. These were due to arrive in a couple of days and would need to be left for 72 hours before opening. Finally, they bowed down to Jesus and said goodbye. Then they each whipped out a pack of antibacterial wipes to make the garage door handle safe for the next visitor. And the baby? Well, he smiled, yawned, and went straight back to sleep, because that's what babies do. Of course, some details would be different if Jesus was born this Christmas and not in the 1st century. But the truth of Christmas, the importance of Christmas, is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. A heavenly king born into our earthly mess. A shepherd king for kings and for shepherds. An eternal king promising eternal life for each of us. May the peace of the Christ child be yours this Christmas and always.